Connecticut, $2,100. That's the median monthly Social Security check. Mississippi, $1,600. Same federal program, same payroll taxes, same retirement age requirements. Completely different outcomes. New Jersey, $2,147. Arkansas, $1,763. Massachusetts, $2,131. West Virginia, $1,748. You could draw a line down the middle of the country and practically predict someone's retirement income based on which side they fell on. Northeast and West Coast, higher numbers. Southeast and Midwest, lower numbers. Every single year of your working life, you paid into the exact same system as everyone else. 6.2% of every paycheck matched by your employer. Same rules, same formulas, same Social Security Administration calculating your benefits. So here's the question. Does where you live actually determine what you get back? Or is something else going on entirely? I'm Tom. I read boring documents so you don't have to. And today we're diving into one of the most misunderstood numbers in American personal finance. What the average Social Security check actually is by state, and more importantly, why those numbers look the way they do. Because the answer is stranger than you think. And it has almost nothing to do with cost of living adjustments, state taxes, or any of the things people assume drive these differences. Before we get into the machinery of how Social Security actually calculates your benefit, and trust me, it's more like tax code than arithmetic, I want to point you toward something useful. There's a free early retirement calculator linked in the description. Uses the same logic BlackRock and Vanguard use for their institutional clients. Takes about 90 seconds. You plug in your numbers, it spits out a realistic timeline. No optimization required. Worth checking after this. Now let's talk about the time capsule. Here's how Social Security actually works. And I need you to stay with me here because this is where most people's understanding falls apart. When the Social Security Administration calculates your retirement benefit, they don't look at your last year of income. They don't average your entire career. They don't even look at your highest earning years in a vacuum. They build a time capsule. Specifically, they reach back through your entire working history and grab 35 years of earnings. Not just any 35 years, your 35 highest earning years adjusted for inflation. If you worked for 40 years, they toss out your 5 lowest earning years. If you worked for exactly 35 years, they use all of them. If you worked for 25 years, they fill in the missing years with zeros. Let that sink in for a moment. Every missing year in your work history gets counted as $0 earned. And those zeros drag down your average just as much as any actual year of earnings. This is what I call the 35-year time capsule. It's a snapshot of your economic life that gets sealed and then used to determine every single monthly payment you'll receive for the rest of your life. You can't renegotiate it. You can't appeal it. The capsule is sealed the moment you claim benefits. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Margaret. Margaret was a high school English teacher in Ohio. Started working at 22, taught for 30 years, retired at 52. Good pension through the state system. Thought she was set. Figured she'd claim Social Security at 62, get a nice little bonus check every month on top of her pension. She filed her claim. The benefit came back lower than she expected, much lower. She called Social Security, spent hours on hold, finally got someone to explain it to her. 30 years of earnings. That's what Margaret had. The Social Security Administration needed 35, so they added 5 years of zeros to her record. Those zeros weren't empty space. They were mathematical anchors. They pulled her average monthly earnings down by 14%. Not because she earned less, but because she stopped earning earlier than the formula required. Margaret's situation isn't unique. It's baked into the system. Every early retiree, every FIRE movement adherent, every successful business owner who sold at 45 and figured they were done, every person who took a decade off to raise children or care for parents, everyone who doesn't have 35 years of solid earnings has the same problem. The time capsule doesn't care about your reasons. It only cares about the numbers. Now let's get into the math, because this is where it gets weird. Social Security calculates what's called your AIM average index monthly earnings. They take those 35 years of earnings, remember? Zeros included if you're short on years, and they index them to inflation. That means your 1985 salary gets adjusted upward to reflect what it would be worth in today's dollars. They sum up all 35 years, divide by the number of months 420, because 35 years times 12 months, and that gives them your average indexed monthly earnings. But here's the thing, your aim is not your benefit. It's just the starting point. What happens next involves something called bend points. And bend points are where the Social Security system reveals its true nature as a progressive wealth redistribution program disguised as a retirement savings plan. In 2024, the bend points work like this. The Social Security Administration takes your AME and runs it through a 3-tiered formula. For the first $1,174 of your average monthly earnings, you get back 90%. That's right, 90 cents on every dollar you earned, on average, goes back into your monthly benefit check. For the next chunk of earnings, anything between $1,174 and $7,078, you get back 32%, not 90, 32. Still getting something back, but the return rate has dropped dramatically. Anything above $7,078, you get back 15%. Let me put some real numbers on this. Imagine 3 workers. Same age, same work history length, different career paths. Worker 1, average index monthly earnings of $1,000. This is someone who worked lower wage jobs their entire life, maybe retail or food service. Their benefit calculation is straightforward. 90% of $1,000. Monthly benefit, $900. Not glamorous, but relatively speaking, they're getting back almost everything they put in. Worker 2, average index monthly earnings of $4,000. Maybe a mid-level manager, a nurse, a skilled tradesperson. Their benefit calculation splits across 2 tiers. 90% of the first, $1,174. That's $1,056.60. Plus 32% of the remaining $2,826, that's $904.32. Total monthly benefit, $1,960.92. Notice something? Worker 2 earned 4 times as much as worker 1, but their benefit isn't 4 times larger. It's about 2.2 times larger. The system is designed to compress outcomes. Higher earners get higher benefits, but not proportionally higher. Worker 3, average indexed monthly earnings of $10,000. This is a high earner, maybe a doctor, attorney, executive, someone who hit the Social Security wage base cap multiple years in a row. Their calculation hits all 3 tiers. 90% of the first, $1,174, $1,056.60. 32% of the next $5,900, $4, $1,800, $89.28. 15% of the remaining $2,922, $438.30. Total monthly benefit, $3,384.18. Let's recap. Worker 1 earned $1,000 per month on average. Worker 3 earned $10,000, 10 times as much. But worker 3's benefit is $3,384 compared to worker 1's $900. That's about 3.8 times larger, not 10 times larger. The more you earn, the smaller your percentage return. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds like a progressive tax system, higher earners subsidizing lower earners. And you'd be partially right. Social Security does redistribute wealth from higher earners to lower earners. But there's a catch, several catches, actually, that make the system far more complicated than simple redistribution. First, the wage base cap. In 2024, you only paid Social Security taxes on the first $168,600 of income. Earned $500,000? Congratulations. You stopped paying Social Security taxes in late summer. Every dollar above that cap was payroll tax-free. The cap exists because benefits are also capped. There's a maximum monthly benefit, which in 2024 was $3,822 for someone claiming at full retirement age. Second, the system isn't means tested. Billionaires collect Social Security. Warren Buffett collects Social Security. The check hits the same bank account, whether you're surviving on cat food or summering in the Hamptons. The only requirement is that you paid in for enough years. Third, and this is the one that trips people up, the bend point formula doesn't account for cost of living differences across states. $900 a month goes a lot further in rural Arkansas than it does in San Francisco. But the benefit calculation doesn't care. Your dollars get calculated the same way, whether you're planning to retire in Manhattan or Mobile. This brings us back to the state-by-state numbers I opened with. Connecticut at $2,159 median, Mississippi at $1,600 median. Why the gap? Here's where most people's intuition fails them. The natural assumption is that Social Security benefits are somehow adjusted for where you live. Cost of living adjustments maybe, regional differentials, something tied to local economic conditions. Nope. Social Security benefits are calculated using a national formula applied to individual earnings history. There's no state-level adjustment, no regional weighting. A retiree in Connecticut and a retiree in Mississippi with identical earnings histories would receive identical monthly benefits. So why do the actual numbers vary so dramatically by state? The answer lies in the time capsule. Remember, Social Security reaches back 35 years into your earnings history. Those earnings get indexed to inflation, but they reflect what you actually earned. And what you earned depends enormously on where you worked. Wages in the Northeast have historically been higher than wages in the South. Same job, different pay. A registered nurse in Connecticut in 1995 earned more than a registered nurse in Mississippi in 1995. A construction worker in New Jersey earned more than a construction worker in Arkansas. A teacher in Massachusetts earned more than a teacher in West Virginia. These wage differentials compound over time. 35 years of slightly higher pay in Connecticut versus Mississippi translates to a higher average indexed monthly earnings. Higher AIM means higher benefit. The gap isn't about where you retire, it's about where you earned. The time capsule doesn't care where you live now, it cares where you lived then. This has profound implications that most retirement planning completely ignores. If you spent your career in a high-wage state and then retired to a low-cost state, you're essentially arbitraging the system. Your Social Security check was calculated based on Northeast or West Coast wages, but you're spending it in the Southeast or Midwest, where your dollars go further. The reverse is also true. Spend your career in a low-wage state, retire to a high-cost area, and you're getting squeezed from both directions. Lower lifetime earnings mean a lower benefit check, and that check doesn't stretch as far in your expensive new home. Now you might be thinking, okay, but this is just averages. There must be plenty of high earners in Mississippi and low earners in Connecticut. And you're right. The state-level data represents medians, not individual outcomes. A CEO in Jackson, Mississippi earned more than a minimum wage worker in Hartford, Connecticut. Their Social Security checks would reflect that. But here's what's fascinating, and this is where the data reveals something most people don't consider. The state-level variation in Social Security benefits is almost entirely explained by two factors: historical wage levels and the percentage of workers who qualify for benefits at all. Let me explain that second one. Not everyone qualifies for Social Security. You need 40 credits, which translates to roughly 10 years of work. In states with higher rates of informal employment, agricultural work, or people who never entered the formal labor force, a smaller percentage of the senior population collects Social Security benefits. Those who do collect tend to be people with more formal work histories, better documented careers, higher lifetime earnings. This skews the average upward in states with robust labor markets and downward in states with more fragmented employment patterns. The time capsule captures everything. Every year you worked, every year you didn't. Every dollar you earned, every dollar you didn't. And then it seals itself and determines your monthly check for the rest of your life. But wait, there's another variable I haven't mentioned yet. One that has nothing to do with where you earned or how much you made. One that can swing your monthly benefit by as much as 76%. When you claim, and this is where we need to have an uncomfortable conversation about what people actually do versus what they should do. Social Security allows you to claim retirement benefits as early as age 62. Most people do. In fact, about 30% of eligible workers claim at 62. Another 35% claim between 62 and their full retirement age. That's nearly 2/3 of retirees claiming early. Here's what early claiming costs you. If your full retirement age is 67, which it is, for anyone born after 1960, and you claim at 62, your benefit gets reduced by 30%, not temporarily, permanently, forever. Every single monthly check for the rest of your life is 30% smaller than it would have been if you'd waited. Wait until 70, and your benefit increases by 24% over your full retirement age amount. That's 24% more every month for the rest of your life. Let's put some real numbers on this. Say your calculated benefit at full retirement age 67 is $2,000 per month. Claim at 62 and you get $1,400 per month instead. Claim at 70 and you get $2,480 per month. Same earnings history, same time capsule, same person, 3 completely different outcomes based solely on when you sign the paperwork. The break-even analysis here is straightforward but emotionally difficult. If you claim early and die young, you made the right call. You collected more total benefits before the end. If you claim late and live long, you made the right call. The higher monthly benefit eventually overcomes the years you skipped. The break-even age for someone choosing between 62 and 67 is typically around 77 or 78. Live past 78 and waiting would have been the better financial decision. Die before 78 and claiming early was optimal. The problem? None of us know our expiration date. This uncertainty leads most people to claim early. Bird in the hand. Who knows what tomorrow brings? Social Security might not even exist in 10 years. Might as well get mine now. I understand the impulse. But I want you to consider something. The people who designed Social Security were actuaries. They ran the numbers. They know exactly what the break-even ages are. They know that claiming patterns cluster at the early end. They know that most people leave money on the table. The system is designed with this in mind. Early claiming penalties and delayed claiming credits are actuarially neutral from the system's perspective on average across the entire population. The total benefits paid out are roughly the same, regardless of when people claim. But they're not neutral for you as an individual. Your personal break-even calculation depends on your health, your family history, your other income sources, your spouse's situation, and about a dozen other factors. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. But here's what I can tell you with certainty. Most people make this decision based on fear and impatience, not analysis. They claim early because they're scared the money won't be there later, or because they want the immediate cash, or because they don't fully understand the permanent reduction. The time capsule doesn't care why you claimed early. It just shrinks your benefit and moves on. There's one more factor we need to discuss before we get deeper into the state-by-state breakdown. And it's the thing most retirement calculators get completely wrong: spousal benefits. If you're married, your Social Security decision isn't just about you. It's about your household. Spouses can claim benefits based on their own work history, or they can claim spousal benefits based on their partner's work history, whichever is higher. Spousal benefits max out at 50% of the primary worker's full retirement age benefit. This creates planning opportunities and pitfalls. A lower earning spouse might be better off claiming spousal benefits, but those benefits are only available once the primary worker has claimed. This interacts with the early claiming penalties in complicated ways. Claim too early as the primary earner, and you reduce not just your own benefit, but potentially your spouse's spousal benefit as well. There are also survivor benefits to consider. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse can claim the deceased spouse's benefit if it's higher than their own. This means the higher earner's claiming decision affects the surviving spouse's income for the rest of their life. The time capsule, it turns out, isn't just personal. It's a family artifact. I said earlier that the state-level variation in Social Security benefits comes down to where you earned, not where you retire. That's true, but it's not the whole story. There's a deeper pattern in the data that reveals something about the American economy over the past 4 decades. The time capsule for today's retirees stretches back to the late 1980s or early 1990s. That's when their 35-year earnings window begins. Think about what was happening in the economy during that period. Manufacturing decline in the Rust Belt, the rise of service jobs, stagnant wages for the middle class, explosive income growth for the top percentile, the tech boom, the housing bubble, the financial crisis, the slow recovery. All of that is captured in the time capsule. A retiree in Ohio might have worked in a factory that closed in 2003. Their earnings peaked in the late 1990s and then declined or stagnated. Those years of decline are in the capsule. A retiree in California might have worked in an industry that grew steadily with regular raises and promotions. Those years of growth are in the capsule. Geographic variation in Social Security benefits isn't just about regional wage differences. It's about regional economic trajectories over the past 3.5 decades. Some areas thrived. Others struggled. The people who lived and worked in those areas carried those economic conditions into their benefits calculations. The system doesn't adjust for any of this. It doesn't account for the fact that the Rust Belt was hit harder by deindustrialization. It doesn't account for the fact that coastal cities saw faster wage growth. It simply calculates benefits based on what you earned, when you earned it, and when you claim. Fairness was never the point. The point was creating a baseline of retirement income that would prevent widespread elderly poverty. On that metric, Social Security has been reasonably successful. The poverty rate among seniors is lower than the overall poverty rate. Not zero, but lower. But reasonable success at preventing poverty doesn't mean the system makes sense for any individual retiree trying to figure out their own situation. The state-by-state numbers I mentioned at the start, Connecticut at 2,159, Mississippi at 1,600, those are snapshots of how the time capsule played out across different populations. They're not predictions, they're not targets, they're aggregate outcomes of millions of individual earnings histories, filtered through a formula that most people don't understand. Your personal number could be higher or lower. It could be much higher or much lower. The only way to know is to check your own Social Security statement, which you can do online at the Social Security Administration's website. They'll show you your entire earnings history, every year of reported income, and your projected benefit at various claiming ages. Look at your earnings history carefully. Look for zeros. Look for years where the reported income seems wrong. Employers sometimes report incorrect information. The time capsule captures errors as readily as it captures accurate data. If you find mistakes, you can contest them, but there's a time limit. Generally, you have 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the time the earnings were reported to correct errors. After that, the record stands. The time capsule seals itself, not just when you claim, but piece by piece throughout your career. So we've established that Social Security benefits vary by state, primarily because wages vary by state. We've established that the calculation looks back 35 years and penalizes gaps in your work history. We've established that the bend point formula gives higher replacement rates to lower earners and lower replacement rates to higher earners. We've established that when you claim can swing your monthly benefit by as much as 76%. But there's still something missing from this picture. Something about the way people actually make these decisions in the real world. With imperfect information and competing priorities and the nagging fear that maybe, just maybe, the whole system will collapse before they get their share. That's what we need to dig into next.